Sorry about that.
Roy, I think it's the mic on your phone, I believe. Or
Okay. Is that better?
yes.
All right. So are we on or are we off? Are we good? All right. I don't know if you guys heard any of that, but I apologize. And so I'm going to start over. My name is Roy S. Johnson. I'm with the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute with AL.com. I'm a columnist, and this is a conversation series hosted by the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute called Athletes and Activism, Taking a Knee, Taking a Stand. Now, if you have questions, wherever your stream is, you'll be able to send in questions, and we'll be able to get those. So don't hesitate to send your questions to our panelists. I began by reading a bunch of names like Muhammad Ali, Jim Thorpe, Althea Gibson, Jackie Robinson, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Martina Navratilova, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Serena Williams, Kurt Flood. Clearly the thread between sports and social activism is long and deep. And these are just a few of the athletes and coaches who've taken stands or actions against social injustice, racism, gender inequality, war, and police brutality, sometimes at great risk to their own careers. Today, in these unprecedented times, athletes are at the forefront of social activism, surprisingly largely with the support of some of their sports leagues, something that simply would not have occurred even just a few months ago, before the awful murder of George Floyd beneath the knee of a Minneapolis police officer, which changed us all, igniting a national awakening on racial equity and social justice. Now, this former sports writer is excited today to be joined by three esteemed guests. And we're going to go ladies first. Hello, Zina.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Just trying to stay away from COVID right now.
Hey, that's all of us. I mean, tennis fans know you, of course. You were a former top 4 professional in the world, 14 career singles titles, 20 doubles titles, a 3-time Grand Slam mixed doubles champion, women's gold medalist in the Olympics, and a singles bronze medalist Seoul in 1988. And I was over there for that. I was in the press box at Wimbledon also in 1990 when you were runner-up over there to Martina. So welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thanks.
Izell, you there?
I'm here.
What's up, sir? How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Now, some people may not know, but you're originally from right down here in Dothan, Alabama, not too far from Birmingham, and you were a walk-on safety at the University of Alabama at Birmingham back when they were barely playing football, right?
That's well put.
Right. So you played here for 4 years, and then you became one of the first players drafted into the NFL by UAB drafted in the 6th round by the Dallas Cowboys and played for Dallas, Denver, and Buffalo. Now, he's currently the founder and president GM of Reigning Champs, which is the leading youth sports experience and path to college solutions provider in the U.S. And you're also working with the NFL to bring flag football to the World Games in 2022, right here in Birmingham, right?
That's right.
All right. So finally, it is my extreme honor to introduce Craig Hodges. Craig played for the NBA for 10 seasons. 3 times led the league in 3-point shooting percentage. 3 times he won 2 NBA championships, right? You got 2 rings with the Chicago Bulls, and one of only 2 players to win 3 consecutive 3-point shooting contests. The other player is a guy named Larry Bird. That, Craig has been an activist his entire life. Credits a lot of that to his mother, who you once called the Angela Davis in your household. Now, most famously in 1991, on a visit to the White House after a Bulls championship, Craig slipped an envelope with a letter into an assistant for President George H.W. Bush during the White House ceremony. And the letter was really calling on the president to come up with a comprehensive plan to end injustices towards the Black community. Soon thereafter, Craig, you were out of the league, and you have said many times, believed you were blackballed. So let's start this conversation. How do you feel now when you see so many athletes being involved, so many athletes being open and outspoken without mostly repercussion? You feel vindicated, or do you feel still frustrated at what transpired with you?
Well, first of all, just thanking God for us to get a chance to come across their waves and helping the solutions to our people, man, and the solutions to the world, in fact. And for me in 1991, we didn't have the social media platforms that the athletes have now. So I just look at, a lot of what they're doing now is in passing the baton, and it's their turn to be able to be visible and give the message, man. And it's like you said, it's just a continuum, man. And we're not anything different than what Kurt Flood or Paul Robeson or Jack Johnson were. It's just a matter of us being in this day and time. And like Sister Zina said, with the corona and everything going on, I think it's given a lot of people an opportunity to take a true perspective of inward look at themselves, as well as to see what the world has been putting forth in as far as oppression of our people, not only our people, but when you look at the entirety of the planet, everyone has been enslaved to a certain degree. When we look at the economics and the desperate, between the wealth and the impoverished. So it's just a continuum, man. And I thank God that we're here to be able to speak to these issues in a critical thinking manner, as opposed to it just being a pop of some type of fad that we're going through.
Zina, how well aware were you of what Craig was going through, aware of social issues while you were playing tennis, a predominantly white sport, and also an individual sport where you don't really have the cover and support of teammates? Give me your sense of what it was like while you were playing. You did talk about how you didn't have a shoe contract, even though you were top 4 in the world. Most recently, Alibi Washington, another African-American player who was on tour, talked about some of the racism he experienced. How different was it for you being an individual sport, a global sport, and still having to have some consciousness about what was going on in the world?
Well, for me, I grew up in Texas, so I was always very aware that there was racism around me, even at a very young age. But as I got into the field of tennis and started to progress, and especially into the professionals, I always knew that there were some things there, and especially being number 4 in the world and going 5 years with no contract, and was told that if I got just, you get a little bit better, if you get a little higher, then you'll get some endorsements, Or, one guy even told me at the agents I was at that, who do I think I am, Michael Jordan? Why do I expect to should I get more money for what I was doing? Well, when people less than me, 30 spots less than me, were making more money than I was off the court.
Izell, you were in college back then. You were a walk-on at UAB in the early 90s. You were still just a young person. Right now, we're seeing a lot of college athletes using this moment and this platform to speak up. Give us some sense of what it was like when you were in college and whether you would have felt comfortable speaking out on social issues at that time.
I think when I was in college, obviously we're talking about the late 90s, it was still no different than what was mentioned earlier. It was still a time where you didn't feel as comfortable. You know, you may have been one out of an entire football team and may have felt a certain way, and it wasn't as a collective voice as it is now. That has instilled a lot of confidence that you see in this day and time in these young men in college, because so many pro athletes are now speaking out and using their platform. And that's what it's led to. And I think it's been great to see. And a young man that comes to mind is Colin Hill, the star running back at Mississippi State. And this happened, June 22nd. That young man sent out a tweet, and by June 28th, the flag was removed from the state of Mississippi. This is a young man at Mississippi State, the running back. So to see that confidence is being built, and it started at the pro level across multiple sports, as we've seen. So, but yeah, to your point, Roy, when I was in college, you didn't see that. I mean, if it was far and few between. And if it happened, you didn't hear of that athlete anymore. It probably was from a team, et cetera. So I mean, it's pleasing to see this on such a great level now at the pro level.
Hey, Roy,
Fred,
you know, one of the things I want to interject, you know, and I wanted to applaud Zina, you know, during the time when she was playing. I was one of the biggest fans from afar, just knowing, you know, the different struggles she was probably going through, just knowing what that sport involved in as far as endorsements and the like, and to see that she wasn't really getting her just due, even when she was getting down the way she was getting down. It was, you know, to see it and to know, you know, I was a tennis player growing up, and I know the training that goes into it, and just the intense hours. You know, in fact, all of us who are athletes know what goes into it, but also knowing that as we go through our sport, we have a common link to our families, and our families are at the crib. They're on a local level. So a lot of things that we get to experience on the international level, we can only bring back and hopefully share. And I think one of the greatest ways to share is to do whatever we can to give information so that this next generation can reach their full potential.
Totally agree, Craig, on that. It's you know, and it's nice to know that you play tennis. A lot of, you know, that's interesting. I find out a lot of athletes play tennis, but you know, the biggest thing is right now, they do have that major platform. You know, they have their phones, and things are happening right away. You know, there's no one, you know, back in our day, stories were being written like people, you know, different journalists and everything. And so the stories were shaped by the journalists more so than your actual voice.
No doubt.
We haven't even mentioned, I just barely mentioned Colin Kaepernick. It's been 4 years now since he first took a knee, and just seeing the tremendous change that has happened, not just for him personally, and the level of image that he was able to create, you know, not playing, being barred from playing, many people believe. What does Colin Kaepernick mean to you guys? I mean, just individually, when you look at where we are now, what is his place in helping get us here? Izell?
I think, I mean, for him to do that, again, is back to the question you asked me earlier about just a certain point in time in college, and that was no different. We're talking about 4 years ago, to your point. And you see what happened to him. You see what happened to his career. You're talking about, you know, an elite level quarterback that had just left for Super Bowl not long ago after that. And to not even be in the league, it's just unheard of to see that. And then now you look at the platform he's been put on, and hopefully, I know he's still vying for, hopefully he does still get that chance. But that was inspirational. I mean, it was definitely motivational to me. I mean, as a former player, and seeing him take that stance, and is one of those things where, you know, there's countless steps and opportunities that athletes have taken over the years to be pioneers, to take a stand, and for him to do that at that day and time, it was definitely an awakening that is a constant reminder that people are constantly bringing up right now. So he did it, even though it cost him a lot in his professional career, but he made a difference to a lot of young people, a lot of people, what we're seeing today and taking a stand by what he did that day and time.
Zina, what about?
I think that it's amazing the sacrifices and things that he had given up, and basically taking his name and just kind of running it through the mud. But a couple of years later, it's like it helped with an entire movement at the George Floyd across the world. And Kaepernick, was a big part of that, getting the young people involved and getting them to want to know their history and understand. And, the biggest thing is not buying into what people were saying, why he was doing it, or maybe why you shouldn't do it. I think he was a big part of the movement of George Floyd that we have right now for the young people.
Craig?
Yeah, for me, it's I enjoy watching it, man. Just enjoying seeing the impact that he has as a young brother, being able to, come into his history and come into the knowledge the way he came into it. And it wasn't a thing, and that's what's so cool about our history, man. It's so rich that it can captivate you on a level where nothing has ever captivated you. So when I look at the Colin Kaepernick and his evolution, when I look at the evolution of the quarterback that I saw in the Super Bowl with a Bovada's haircut compared to the young brother with an afro, and it was like, man, what happened? So for me, it's just one of those things to see that history can affect people, and our history, importantly, I think that's one of the things that as we come out of this whole Corona thing, I think the true and exact history has to be taught across the board, so that this white supremacy and the thing that's in, like Zina was saying earlier, that the media can take and spin anything it wants to. So when we talk about him taking a knee for police brutality and then it's spun on a level of patriotism, then we have to know that at some point in time we have to become more mature in the way that we go out and organize ourselves and just don't become reactionary in a lot of fashion.
Social activism can take on a lot of forms. And one of the things that we're seeing now is, particularly in basketball, where some of the top recruits in the nation have chosen to go to HBCUs rather than Division I schools. It's only a handful. It's only 2 or 3.
It's all you need.
Yeah, one of the questioners asked about why Black colleges don't get the same visibility, don't get the same support. There's a lot of reasons behind that. But if you start getting a handful of these top players, even if they're one and dones, to start going to some of these Black colleges, you'll start to see some of those cameras turn to those schools. Is this something, Izell, that you think is the beginning of something, or is this just a thing of the moment?
I think I think it's here to stay. I think you're going to see more and more of it. I think now more than ever, and it's phenomenal to see Macure is a young man, one of the top recruits in the country that has chosen to go to Howard, and I think it's going to be a movement. I don't think it's a one and done, and I think a lot of that is going to show because people are monitoring that, watching it closely. I think you will see some other athletes do it, but when you look 2 years from now, and that young man is in the NBA, and it hasn't impacted his career. And people see now some of his games being televised, or they're playing in bigger arenas or sold out crowds at Howard because of it. It's going to be impactful. But I mean, if you've had the opportunity to hear that young man speak and how talented he is, articulate he is, how smart he is, how intelligent he is, and taking that stand, I mean, it's phenomenal to see. I know I was like that at that age. So to see these young people, taking a stance, it's a different generation. I mean, you look at this now and how long this is. It's phenomenal to see. These are young people that are driving this protest. Yeah. These are young people that are driving this movement and using their platform and being aware. That young man has a huge following through social media, and now you're seeing young athletes, teenagers, using their voice, using their platform, and understand it because they're being educated by the LeBron James of the world of how to use your platform even more so this day and time.
Well, I like to say that They're called the Gen Zs, is what they're called. I think it's from 22 on down. They have been that one generation that has gone through so much devastation, whether it's, from a fire to earthquakes to, police brutality. They've actually seen it all. They felt the pain and the hurt that the people did that felt back in the 60s. So I am very, very encouraged that, this next generation is on the right path for sure.
Craig, that's got to make you feel amazing to see that top talent going to an HBCU.
Yeah. For me, one of the things I tell people all the time in this, I've been speaking, violence prevention in Chicago. So one of the things for me is that it's an energy right now that's, and Zina and Izell, when you're getting ready to win, and you're going to win, but you still have to go to practice. You still have to, get to the training, but it's a W on the other side of it. And that's where I feel like where we are as a people right now. And that generation that we speak of, that's the generation of fulfillment. And that the realization that a divine inheritance is actually coming to our people is something that is karmic. It's not anything that anybody can do about it. So all we have to do is make sure, and that's one of the things that we're promoting here in Chicago, is that let's shoot hoops, not people. You know what I'm saying? And that we're killing one another at a rate that's untold. But at the same time, we have to realize the reasons why we're in such a condition. But that condition is truly about to change. You can tell by the energetics of it.
You may remember last year when Maya Moore, WNBA player, left the WNBA to seek the release of a prisoner in Missouri and obtained that release this year. How amazing is it that not only did she leave her career behind to pursue justice for one individual, but that she was actually able to secure his release earlier this year? Zina, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to say what the WNBA, I've just recently started really kind of following their movement and what they've been doing. So I've been actually a couple years behind from what I've been able to read and understand, and it's just amazing because they are truly, truly taking a stance on social justice in a lot of different ways. And, I like to say, sorry, guys, but just the power of women and showing what we can do. So I'm very proud of them, very proud of them.
Right. And for me, one, go ahead, Izell.
No, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, one of the things for me is that the courage that it takes to be able to take a stand like that and know that it's truly no gold pot on the other end of it. Only thing that is that you're standing on principles that you can't compromise on. And one of the things that for me, I'm watching this whole NBA going back to work. I asked the brothers, I'm saying, what are we going back for? At this point in time in our history, we have never been at a more elevated and a position of leverage than we are now. And if we can see a sister that takes a stance, where are we as men? So Zina, when you say power to the sisters, I give it up because it's a certain courage that's necessary at this day and time to be able to sacrifice and the sacrifice, like we say, if a young brother like McCord goes to Howard or wherever he's going to go, how many other students are he going to draw to that environment, to that knowledge base? And that's the same thing to me, is that when a sister takes that stance, me as a brother, I got to stand with that. And the only way I can stand with that is not compromising and go down there and hoop. We don't need to even be down there. We need to be with our people taking and one of the things, Roy, that is wild to me is when they were saying that if the brothers don't go play, we're going to tear up the collective bargaining agreement. And at that point in time, to me, we would have more leverage than we've ever had in professional sports because we control 80% of the base. So why wouldn't we want a new collective bargaining agreement that could call for Black ownership?
Wow.
Izell, you want to?
Yeah, I'll just add, Roy. I mean, I had the opportunity to watch it. It kind of did storytelling, if you will, this weekend alongside all the WNBA games that were played. So it was nice to see TV, sports back on TV for a change. But in between those games, it was very educational, very motivational to see and see the story firsthand. And it got told. I'm sure the ratings were through the roof. So that's a history moment. And I just keep going back to the younger generations, because here it is, a young, active player saying something's more important than not just me dribbling a basketball and being on a court. You know, you set this session up about activists.
Yeah.
That's a true activist, and what she did and what she was willing to do for somebody else. And the success that came out of that, and the true success out of that is the future generation. She's motivated more women, Black women, women of color, that says, you know what, I want to go do something for somebody. I want to use my platform. I want to take a sacrifice. And I think that's what we need. That's what we're seeing right now. I mean, I was sitting there watching it with my kids, and they were asking me questions about it. I mean, off of something that she did, off of the standing together and walking out on the national anthem. I mean, that was powerful to see this weekend. So it's just phenomenal to see. Zina, I'm with you with girl power. I got a daughter, so see it. I mean, it
can't fight it, brother. You can't fight
it.
Nothing you could do about it.
Well, it's also very interesting just to watch in this time what I consider to be called our reset, when this whole quarantine stuff started and people started thinking about, you know, what is really going on. And what I've noticed more than anything is, you know, of course, the voices and everything, and people are more creative. But the biggest thing is, you know, people that are extremely selfish they're in the back seat now. It's the people that are actually caring about everyone else and are trying to better the country and try to better the race is starting to come in the forefront. And I'm loving that whole reset, what I call the reset.
Yeah, and it is. And
Craig, I want to go back to something.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Craig.
No, I was just saying, that's the whole thing. It's not, you know, it's a reset of the whole entirety of the planet, and nobody knows what to expect. And the true reality is that we have the power to define our new reality, and to do it in a manner that is good for the collective, as opposed to the one and a million or whatever the great ones may be.
Now, Craig, you know, I'm not going to let you go by without talking a little bit about your time with the Bulls. You know, pretty much every sports fan in America saw Last Dance. I was able to be in that for a little bit.
Right.
Tell me about the things you try to do in terms of educating your teammates, particularly Michael Jordan, about their own self-awareness, about social justice. Give us a couple of stories about some conversations you had with Michael about more aware and using his platform for something outside of basketball.
You know, one of the things for me is, like I said, I grew up a baby in the movement, and I had a chance to go to Long Beach State and study Black studies. So education and information is exciting to me. So whenever I would get any information or studying something, I'm sharing it with my teammates, whether it's white, black, or brown. It didn't matter. So I would get on the plane and I'll put Farrakhan tape in, and everybody would have to watch it, whether it be John Paxson or Jerry Krause or Jerry Reinsdorf. And it wasn't anything out of the ordinary for Craig Hodges to do that. So it was a certain line that I wasn't going to cross. And then when I saw brothers, we'll be on a bus and we're talking about education. And then two of my younger brothers who just got in the league, ain't gonna name no names, say, man, what I need education for? I got 6 figures. And that gassed me when I told them, hey man, the brother sitting in the front seat, the owner, he walking off with 13 figures. So when we talk, we got to figure, we have to be realistic in where we are. And that's what's so wild about when I look at what's going on with the NBA, that the brothers can have a private phone call about what we're going to do as a unit. And then that phone call leaks out to point the finger at different players who have a certain love for their people. And now it becomes a thing where it's Dwight Howard, it's Kyrie Irving, it's Avery Bradley. And then I look at Colin Kaepernick, and the great part of him being able to get a settlement from the league, him being able to get his Disney contract, is that his players union had some enforcement in helping him, where Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, myself, we had no help from our union. So when you're in the midst of playing, Zina tell you, Izell tell you, that you're in the midst of trying to stay on top of your craft. I wasn't worried about business. I love my people more than I love the business. It was about me being able to utilize that pulpit that we had as a world champion squad with the best player ever. And then we talk about the best player ever. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I saw in The Last Dance that irritated me as an athlete, that it's certain things that we don't do as team players. Now, Zina is a different player. She's in an individual sport. There's certain things that she may be able to say about an opponent or something like that. But as a team, there's certain things that we leave in the locker room, we leave on the bus, we leave on the plane. And you leave it like that because as we grow older, we have children, grandchildren, babies, uncles, all this kind of stuff that people need us. So from that standpoint, it's just a blessing, man, that to be able to have had the studies that I had during that period of time and to be able to carry it to my teammates, man. And I don't regret any of it that went down. I don't know what's going on with my computer, gang. Go ahead and carry on, though, guys.
We had one question from Charles. Just can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I can't really.
We had one question from somebody.
Yes.
Can't hear us anymore?
I can hear you.
All right. Well, while we're waiting for Craig to get his sound back, I want to talk a little bit too about another level of social activism, and that's through ownership. Now athletes are making so much money that you're starting to see many of them move into ownership, something that Craig alluded to earlier. You just saw Patrick Mahomes buy a piece of the Kansas City Royals. Is that another level of activism? Are we seeing really a power shift now from just pure ownership to at least cooperative with the athletes?
Well, I think it's a twofold, in my opinion. I first of all, I think it's amazing and it's great because we do need to be on the table and at the table. But athletes and entertainers are making so much money now, and sports is an entertaining event where the money has gotten so big. You need a group of money to buy different teams. But can I give a shout out to Serena Williams and her husband for giving their daughter, now that's what I call family wealth, a piece of the pie for the women's soccer team. And I'm sure Serena probably that's going to be the new thing as well. Start giving your children so you can have that longevity wealth within in major organizations like that.
Izell, what about you?
Yeah, I think I look back when I was playing, and it was definitely motivating to me. And I think you're seeing the second phase of athletes learning from athletes before them that generated wealth and went on into business. And these two in particular that come to mind, Michael Jordan and Magic.
Yeah.
When you look at what they've accomplished in the business world, when they hung up their basketball shoes, if you will, or what they've done, we as active players watch that. And so what you now have is active players using their wealth while they're in the moment to go into the business side of sports, to go into business, to invest into different things. And it's phenomenal to see. I mean, we follow the generations of sport and what happens. So when that door is open, when that stage is set, when somebody stands up as an activist, we're educating ourselves in the moment. I mean, because you have a lot of athletes that are seeing that time and time again, and I think it's better over time, and it's phenomenal to see. But Jordan and Magic for me were two of those ones that I took notes. And I knew I wanted to go into the business side of sports, and those were two that I looked at as role models, not just on the court, but as professional athletes that transition successful in business.
I can hear
Craig,
y'all.
I
Can
know
y'all
at
hear
one
me?
point you tried to get Michael to start his own Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay, cool. Yes, sir.
Okay, you can hear us? Okay,
Yes.
so at one point you tried to persuade Michael to leave Nike and start his own shoe company, to start his own brand, to try to bring jobs in the Chicago area. Obviously, he did not do that, but you're seeing sort of a different level of awareness now, where
I
more
failed him.
athletes are starting
I failed him.
their own businesses and bringing jobs into the.
Yeah,
What was
and
that, Craig?
and one of the things, man, is, yeah, I'd say I failed in my task to try to get Michael to start his own. But right now I feel like we as a people, we're in a position where now we're more mature. So you have a lot of young talent that are doing their own thing already. So whether it be T-shirts, whether it be Kanye and his thing, you're seeing different talents utilize their own visibility. And like the brother said, Magic and Michael are certainly great businessmen, but I would like to take them to task in as far as being able to create an environment where the same entities, same entities that they've been endorsers of, let's really cut to the chase and see where they stand on white supremacy, racism for real, and not just in talk. Because right now, more importantly, I look on the planet, man, and in America, there's 1.5 million children missing, man, and we got to be speaking these issues as well as business, brother.
Yeah, I have Craig. I don't think you failed, because you still have an opportunity. Like that $100 million that will be that will be distributed for social justice and different issues. The minute I heard that, the first thing I'm saying was, I hope that he has the right people that make sure that the money goes to what's being needed. And that's a bigger problem that sometimes we don't realize is, yeah, we say all these things, but who's going to be distributing that money, and are they truly in the community, really understanding? Because we got to have some Black people sitting there knowing where that money's going as well.
No question about it. And I think that's been one of the biggest things, is that administrative costs.
Yeah.
Zina, you brought up Serena a minute ago. Now, obviously, she has used her status and the platform to speak out, probably more than you were able to when you were a player. Obviously, she's earned a ton of money and has been able to invest in companies, to start companies, to support other entrepreneurs. I mean, are we really seeing, is this really the tip of the iceberg now? And we're starting to see athletes model not just what they can do with the platform in terms of raising awareness on issues that matter, but also leveraging their wealth in ways to perhaps
during this
even
quarantine,
affect
during the quarantine, a lot. Sorry, Roy, what'd you say?
No. I said that we finally starting to see this shift where athletes are not just using their platform to raise awareness, but using their wealth in a way that could have an impact on the racial wealth gap.
Yeah, I think that it definitely will. And like I said, I've had the opportunity to do, quite a bit of talking to Serena during this quarantine. And, the interesting part is, and Craig mentioned something earlier about basically just, knowing their history. He was trying to teach history and he enjoyed it. I had a conversation with Serena, and she enjoys her history, knowing her history, because she believes that that's the future. So that's a big part of it, is knowing where you want to go. And she's very aware of being a strong Black woman, a strong woman, and what she wants to do to further her activism for women and mothers and things like that.
Izell, can you talk about what you're seeing on the youth level and also on the global level? We haven't talked much about Olympic sports and sports that really haven't been very visible, not just because of Corona, but because of timing. But you operate in the youth realm as well. Are we seeing this trickle down, this empowerment, this sense of knowledge and self sort of trickle down to younger people than perhaps in previous generations?
Yeah, I think we are. Again, we bring up the young men that's choosing, high school athletes choosing to go to HBCUs. I think that's the great example of this. it's making a difference and it's making an impact. And I think you're going to see more of that. I mean, there's countless examples at the collegiate level, and collegiate to high school is, you're talking about a year or two difference. And these high school stars of using their platform. I mean, I've seen countless examples on social media. It's shifted to where I went from preaching to kids on social media, leery of what you post, et cetera, just trying to keep them from posting negative things, to where I'm reading kids' social media now, and they're posting very positive, inspirational messages on the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's phenomenal to see. Again, we're talking about teenagers, so it's making a difference in the way they talk, because again, the pro athletes are talking this way.
Yeah.
When they say that, they want to emulate whoever their star is, and so I mean, it's easy to see that everybody on this phone, we've relished being role models, So the more you're now seeing more than ever from Black athletes, from white athletes getting behind this movement to support their minority brothers and sisters in this cause and using their social media platforms. It's a phenomenal educational tool of technology that's impacting the future generations of youth in sports.
Well, Isaiah, it's really funny because I have this thing. Every athlete and entertainer should not be a role model, and they should not be out in front. If you don't know your history, where we're trying to go, then we will take your support. And there are many activists that you can give your money, but don't need to speak about some things, because some people put you backwards. So my friends laugh at me all the time when I say that, but everyone shouldn't be, and there's nothing wrong with it as well. There's nothing wrong with it as well.
Yeah, thanks for that clarity. You're absolutely right. It's different kinds of role models.
One of the things
that people. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we talk about young people and we talk about the young brother at Mississippi State who was able to do his thing, Izell talking about the brothers and sisters who have a whole different mindset. And that if we look at, throughout history, we look at the movement in South Africa. It was the South African students that changed that movement. It wasn't no old folks like us. You know what I'm saying? It was them young folks, and that we just have to make sure that we're giving them as much guidance as we can. But their creativity and their imagination is something that we can't step on, but we have to be able to guide it as best we can.
Well, one of the things before we start to wrap up that they talked about being different now is really more listening and in some senses support from white teammates, from white coaches in the NBA and some of the other sports. Now, not totally, obviously there's still some backlash, but when you talk about this whole American awakening, you're hearing more that whites want to be supportive. They want to hear more. They're listening more. Occasionally something happens, like with Drew Brees stepped out, but of course, the backlash came at him, and now he's at least donating funds and trying to say the right thing. Is that one thing that kind of sets this movement apart a little bit too? Are you seeing more white athletes, maybe stepping across the line and being supportive of Black Lives Matters and of their teammates' right to?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting, Roy, because what I call her the godmother of sports, and that's Billie Jean King, has broken so many barriers in so many different ways, and had a conversation with her when this stuff started to move. And I said, Billie, what is the most important thing that we need right now? And she said conversation with white people and making sure that they understand and that they're willing to listen, but we also have to listen as well. But one of the things she says to me almost on a daily, she'll text, you got to keep the pressure going. You can't think that it's over with. The minute that you stop thinking the pressure is over with, then you're losing. And she just said this last week. It's like, Zina, pressure has to be, you have to keep, the messages have to keep getting out there, and they have to feel like the pressure it's on them. Because I'm starting to feel, what I've noticed is a couple of companies that I talked to in the beginning were all out in the forefront and ready to do something. And then now things are like, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we can let this pass. We can't let it pass. We got to keep the pressure on them. And we got to keep it in their face.
Teach. And on that point,
Greg, what do you think?
As athletes, we know one thing. We know that momentum is something that when you got it, when you got it, and when you ain't got it. And when you ain't got it, you can't go get that. It happens. Yep. And right now, we at that momentum point where we can make some things happen or we can go to sleep. And to me, this whole thing about opening up sports is trying to put us back to sleep when we're already awake. And we have to remain like we always say, when back in the day, pressure busts a pipe, pressure make fish swim upstream. What makes the big old experience is pressure. So we got to continue that pressure. And like Zina was saying, for me, John Paxson was one of the first people that called me after the last dance, and it was cool because we sat on the bench together as brothers, and all the information I was given. And for him to call me and tell me, yo, Hodge, anything you need me to do was something. But at the same time, it wasn't surprising because he was one of the brothers that stepped up when I was talking about working in the community. Pax had no problem coming to the hood with me. So it's one of those things that we have to continue and to ask those white people who feel where we're going to bring in the other white folks so we can help them to what's happening.
And the Black people have to allow that. Sometimes we got to get out the way of our own self, being stuck in what we're stuck in, and allow people to change as well.
That's right.
Izell, you are in working with the NFL. You're probably in rooms, in some of these boardrooms with some of the league executives, with people who are generally behind the scenes. Are you hearing different conversations? Are you hearing different questions from white colleagues about the Black Lives Matter movement and how the league and your organization, how they can work together more on issues that matter to Black athletes and Black folks in general?
I am, and I think it goes to what we were saying earlier of looking at this, and I would just add that, I know we spent a lot of time, obviously, with police brutality and that being at the forefront, but Zina, I think Zina was saying earlier about keep our foot on the gas because they're asking right now. It's happening within sports. It's happening within corporations around the world, and it's the same conversation. And anybody within those companies, I don't care if you're an executive, manager, sports, you're being asked because you're Black. I've said as an executive, and a lot of times that I've been the only Black person in the room. And so to be able to use your voice now is even more prominent to speak on things sort of around that. So you do see, you're constantly seeing now the NFL, the NBA, pick your sport, pick your brand in sports of them doing something or at least committing to it. You've also seen some companies where they've saying, I hear you, I support you, but action and resources speak louder than words.
Yes.
I think this is an opportunity where we gotta push the envelope on that more. And then also keep in mind that we all have opportunities to pick this vast sea of systemic oppression. And it's not just police brutality, it's healthcare, it's education. We need resources, we need money, we need the right people leading it. And there's so many different causes for us to kind of speak on, to be a part of. Me personally, I've chosen youth. I've chosen to work with the youth in an effort to better educate them so they see what's happening and so that they remember it. And when they're given that to that, they do as much as they can and they raise the bar even higher for the Black community.
So Craig, it's not too late. Call Michael and make sure you get in with what's happening at Nike. So Isaiah's right. We need your help.
You need to be
in that room. You need to be in that room, okay?
No, first of all, me and you need to be in that room, man. All of you need to be in that room.
I'm ready.
Because like you said, I tell people all the time, and all the speeches I've had since all of this stuff started is that it's the sisters that's got the real power. We just, it's like almost that titular executive. You know, they want to show brothers up here big. No. And people talk about integration. I was like, integration? We've been integrated since we got here. When we talking about our grandmama's nursing a white baby, I think that's kind of integrated to me.
Well, look, I'm ready. So just you get in touch with Michael. I've tried to get in touch with him a couple of times. So just hook us up. I'm ready to be in that room because that's very important where that money's going. Okay.
Very important.
Bring Serena too. Tell her to bring her Cash App as well.
Right.
Look, that's two powerhouses right there.
Hey, and we good to move after that.
So as we move towards our last couple of minutes here, I just want to ask each of you, how do we make this sustainable? How do we make it a movement and not just a moment? You know, clearly people are open to change. We're seeing a lot more different people at the table, unique position where athletes have leverage, they have visibility, they have resources. So what would you like to see 3-5 years from now come out of this movement? What we may be seeing then that we don't see now, Zina?
Yeah, and you know, I'm joking, but I'm not joking. I'm very serious about this. I think that we, you know, some of the leaders within these organizations need to tap what I consider, and you keep hearing me say Billie Jean King, but Billie has done it before, and she's done it in a lot of different ways, you know, and so her voice is very, very important, and to get her in that room because she understands both sides, and she's also willing to listen. We have to get our wisdom, and then we have to get our, you know, the next generation to learn the wisdom to pass it on down to the younger ones.
Absolutely.
What about you, Izell? You look at it from a global perspective. You operate in those spaces with global sports. Is this an opportunity to leverage an American movement, American athletes in a way that could have an impact globally?
Absolutely. And I think technology gives us that opportunity to connect globally. To your point, I think what you're seeing now, I mean, you take the three of us, we come from different sports. We're here together. It's one team right now, you know. So if there's anything we learn from sport, we want to be like Craig Hodges and the Bulls. We want to keep winning championship over championship in this because this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. This is a long race. And so the more we can unite, recruit each other, work together, just like you said earlier, I'm here, we in, count me in. And I think we're going to continue to remember that. And while we're in this moment, because it's become the nice thing to do, to put your blanket statement out there from corporations, from organizations, from individuals of influence saying, I hear you, I stand with you, I stand with the Black Matters movement. And then they're putting a dollar amount out there that we don't know where this money is going. We need to hold them accountable consistently. Like this has to keep going. Like track it down, look at it. Look at it a year from now to say, hey, Knight, you said you were going to do X. Let's see it. You said you were going to change your board. Let's see it. So I think it's a marathon. We all got to remember it's a marathon here, and we got to hold them accountable consistently.
And not lose community foundations. We have forgot about that. We talk about small foundations, but I'm sure, Craig, you definitely understand this. Like my foundation, smaller Black foundations, we're struggling. I'm wondering every day if I'm going to make it. And I'm 28 years in. Wow.
And there's so many organizations like that have the heartbeat of the community and know where things are necessary and needed. And those are the ones that are evaporating immediately. You know, but I want to go back and go with the point that Zina was making earlier. You know, recently I had a chance to talk to my hero, Dr. John Carlos. He's down in Atlanta. And I think he's one of the voices, as well as Billie Jean, that we have to start to highlight before they're not here anymore. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because the message and the sacrifices that they made are glaring examples for our children. And it's something that has been excluded over time. But I think, you know, we can talk all we want to about myself and Colin Kaepernick and that type of thing, but without Dr. John, none of this would be possible.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, just one last thing we haven't talked about is it's probably not a coincidence that all this is occurring during an election year, and the importance of voter registration, of going to the polls in November. You know, what role can athletes play, can sports play in affecting turnout in November and really laying a platform for the kind of change that we're all talking about wanting to see in the next 3 years?
What I am loving is just watching the little bit of that I've seen with NBA. Those guys have gotten together, and when they sit down before they do an interview, they put their message out. That message of vote needs to come out every time you start a interview. Every time. And in all sports, and not let people know, not people think that they're getting away with, you know, so they're talking about, you know, having the ballots mailed or not mailed. But we go back to, we have to make sure who's giving the message understands the message that they're projecting as well, and that they want to take on that role.
Izell?
I don't think there's no stronger voice than a Black athlete to the Black community. So Black athletes speak, you know, we listen. I mean, it's something that has always been instilled in our race and our community as part of us. And so again, these athletes have these voices and these platforms, you know, and they're doing it now. But again, it goes back to stay on it because this day is coming quickly. And so, you know, we all got to stay on a united front to get out and vote. I mean, it's critically important, and it's glaring right now of how important it is.
Craig, take us home, not just talking about voting, but obviously there's some challenges within our own community. We have to look inward and leverage not just the big names and the platforms, but also be more supportive of our young people, help them make smart decisions when they come up with these confrontational situations. You know, Craig, you know, take us home with those points and give us your perspective on, again, what we can do, what sports need to do to improve our condition overall.
Well, you know, once again, what like Brother Izell says is that, you know, the visibility and the magnitude of the Black athlete has been consistent since we've been in America, you know, so that's consistent. The thing that we have to do is be consistent in our messaging. And I think the messaging really should come from our women, because they face the most pain. They're facing the murder and mayhem of every death that goes on. It goes back to the sisterhood. And I feel like throughout our history, the sisters have been the actual hub of our organizational mode, and that we as brothers have been able to carry out that messaging. And I think that's what needs to happen. But at the same time, I think we have to know that there's a certain thing that's going on behind the scenes that we have no control over. We have no control over those major monetary interest groups that control the electoral college, that control the federal elections. We, as the mass of people, have to control ourselves on the local level. And on this local level, we can make change. But I'm gonna make a prediction, y'all, and then we're gonna come back and y'all holler at me and ask me, man, where you come up with that at, huh? But the next president, who? The next president is gonna be Paul Ryan, and Nikki Haley gonna be the vice president.
What?
And I ain't voting for either one of them. But just let's see what happens. And I'm leaving y'all on that one.
All right, man.
Then we come back and say, where you get that from, Hodge? And we'll study it. Because look at it. Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something on the real. On the real. Me as a Black man, 60 years old, who do I vote for in this election? Do I vote for Joe Biden, who put my people in jail? Do I vote for Joe Biden because he's a Democrat? Do I vote for Donald Trump? And we talked that once again. Every time the election come around, we got to pick the worst of two.
We don't have another hour to answer that question.
Well, Craig, on that note, let me just tell
I'm
you.
writing in Zina Garrison and LeBron James. Zina for president, LeBron for vice president.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I am very good behind the scenes. I am not interested because some of the stuff that's going on right now, whew. But anyway, thank you guys. This has been amazing conversation.
I love
and I
y'all.
just want to say, Craig
Zina,
and Izell, please keep in touch.
Civil Rights
Yes.
Institute, thank you all, and we'll all keep marching.
Thank
Peace and
you.
love.
Thanks, Roy.
Bye-bye. Thank you.